What if the path to healing your past and unlocking your future was already inside of you?
Today's guest says it is, and she's built a powerful method to help you see it, expose it, love it, and free it.
You're about to hear a conversation that could change how you see yourself forever.
Let's get into it.
Welcome to Thrive by the Rising Muse. Every week, we bring you honest conversations with people doing powerful work in healing, mental health, and personal transformation. Today's episode is a special one and close to our hearts. We are talking with Danielle Bernock, a trauma survivor, coach, speaker, and the founder of 4F Media.
Danielle has helped countless people reclaim their worth, heal deep wounds, and walk in emotional and spiritual freedom. She's also the author of books like Emerging with Wings, Because You Matter, and Love's Manifesto. I like that. Her coaching method is called S.E.L.F, and it's the acronym C, expose, love, free. It's a 4-part process that helps people come out of their inner chaos and into clarity, healing, and ownership of their life. Welcome to the show, Miss Danielle.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start from the beginning. What made you create the S.E.L.F. Uh, acronym and the approach of self?
Well, it's self on purpose, but I created it when I was praying about how do I create a process that's nice and neat and easy to talk about of how God healed me. Because my journey was not neat and a nice little process, follow step by step. Mine was kicking and screaming and clawing and grabbing. That's how I heal. Looking for things and finding things. We have so much more available to people now than I did when I started my journey. So I wanted something to be very clear and concise. And I'm like, okay, God, what'd you do? So he had to show me a process, and he showed it to me to create my first course. I have a Heal Your Childhood Self, S.E.L.F, to take people through that process repetitively to come out of the pain and into the joy. And self became the specific acronym self for two specific reasons. One is the self is where our choice resides. That's the core of who we are. We can't make a choice by someone else. When it feels like it, it's coercion or manipulation, and it's not a free choice. So self is the core of where we make our choices. So I'm getting right to the core of who you are and where you have your power. And the second reason that it's called self is part of my trauma was religious trauma, spiritual trauma, and church hurt. And one aspect of that was the twisting and the excessive way it was taught about dying to self. Take up your cross daily and die. You're supposed to die to self and die. The way I was understanding it, how they were teaching it, with twisted by my own trauma as well. So it was like I needed to cease to exist. It's like, well, why did Jesus come and die if I'm supposed to not even be alive? If it's supposed to be him living and not me, then what's this? So self, we deserve to exist because God loves us. And Jesus came to save us, not to annihilate us. So that self is to empower the self in the core of your power and your choice, and also in your identity of who you are.
That is so awesome. Now, Miss Danielle, can you break it down for us? And tell us what it looks like in practice, the see, the expose, the love, and the free.
Well, in my workshops, I have it very specifically outlined, and it's different depending on what I am addressing. But in my coaching, it's not hardlined like that. It's more gracious and gentle of looking into the person's life. I don't, outline, okay, now we're doing the C part. Now we're doing the E
Mm-hmm.
part. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like that. I'm working with
Mm-hmm.
the human. It just flows. But the
Yes.
C is about awareness, because you can't do anything about something if you're not aware of it.
Correct.
For example, childhood emotional neglect is a kind of trauma that people don't know they have, because it's not about something that happened to them. It's about something that needed to happen that did not happen. So there's an emptiness. There's
Right.
something that's not there that they don't even know is supposed to be there. So you can't
Mm-hmm.
see it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to see something to be able to do something about. So the first step is awareness of what are we dealing with here anyways. And then the E, expose, is about getting to the root cause of, well, why did that happen? Why is that happening? Why is it manifesting like that? Or it's getting underneath what we are seeing. We see this. Okay, so now why is that there?
Mm-hmm.
And then the L is about, we need comfort and courage. We
Mm-hmm.
need to empower ourselves. We have to see that we have to do something about it. We have to see, who has the power here. I have to take ownership of my life. God will help me if I want to let him. But we have to take ownership, but we need comfort and courage. Without comfort and courage, we're not doing anything. We're gonna see, we're gonna expose, and then we're gonna pull the blanket over our head and go to bed good night. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you need the comfort and the courage to say, oh, I'm going to do something, which moves into the F for free, which is the action step,
Mm-hmm.
because it's all about doing something. You have to do something. If you do nothing, nothing happens. So you have to do something, and it's one step at a time. That's why it's a cycle that you go through. We have to peel it like an onion, or
Mm-hmm.
like unrolling a ball of yarn, like you guys
Mm-hmm.
with your crochet.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You talk a lot about inner chaos. How do you recognize when somebody is stuck in their inner chaos?
When the chaos is in charge and they're not.
Okay.
When you have brain fog is one of the things. You can't think
Mm.
clearly. It's like, you can't even think into this afternoon, let alone next week. They say, what do you want to do in 5 years? I don't know what I'm having for dinner. I don't remember what I had
Mm-hmm.
for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Or emotional outbursts, and you,
Right.
you can't seem to control your temper, or you cry, or whatever. However, it manifests in various different types of emotions. But those are two examples of it. Those things are in charge and they're overrunning your life. You're not in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she knows when something's wrong with me because she'll tell me I'm barking. That's what she says.
Yeah.
So I'm not screaming and, all that. But she can tell that the way I talk is sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And she calls it barking. And
Mhm.
when she says, you're barking, I'm like, I ain't. Wow.
Yeah, her demeanor changes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's good. And to have an accountability partner
Mm-hmm.
who knows you.
Yeah.
So when something is out of whack, they know
Mm-hmm.
something's wrong.
Hmm.
And that's good to have.
Yes.
Because if you don't have someone that's,
Yeah, sometimes we're not self-aware of the things we're
yeah,
doing.
didn't
Right.
even realize. That's why I told her, I said, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was barking. And then when I think about what's rubbed me the wrong way, boom.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't aware. She brought the S.E.L.F to you.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Miss Danielle, how do you help someone shift from being overwhelmed to feeling grounded enough to even begin to do this work?
Well, I can help them shift, but the
Mm-hmm.
shifting is something they have to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
something that is very clear. Someone's not going to do anything about it until they choose to.
Wow.
But I can help them shift by making them feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
by being genuine and them seeing me as I care,
Mm-hmm.
through grace. It's for them to feel safe and to offer options before they're ready to talk with somebody. That's why I talk about my books or the podcast I had. I still have all the episodes up there about that. And I have my courses and free resources and my blog and very many things to offer that they can do all by themselves when they're feeling that guardedness.
Mm-hmm.
And then, especially if they watch my videos on my YouTube, they'll actually see me or if they take my course, they'll see, my face, and they'll hear how I talk, and then they get to know me, and it's like, oh, I think I can do that. And encourage people with courage. It takes courage, because if you're going to wait till you're not afraid, you're going to do nothing.
I know that coaching is not therapy. And I read on your website, you specifically say this is not therapy, it's not going forward and not backwards.
Right.
But a lot of those issues are from the past.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach it so that they can, instead of going back to try to resolve those issues, move forward through the coaching process?
It's about moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's in front of you moving forward is what's back there in front of you.
Okay.
I like the illustration to help people understand the difference between coaching and therapy is, imagine you're sitting in your car and you're in your garage. And so you want to go somewhere. But to get out of your garage, you need to back up. You need to look behind you, either by your screen or your rear view mirror, side mirrors, or your head over your shoulder, and your focus is behind you. And then you back out into the street. And now you're ready to go forward. You don't look this way to go forward.
Right.
You look forward. You will still use your mirrors, because
Right.
you reference those things behind you to see the whole view of things. So with coaching, it's like that. We reference the things in the past, but we're not going back there. And if someone is stuck back there, they need a therapist, and I will send them to one.
Okay.
That makes sense. It really does.
You also talk, within the exposed stage about vulnerability and that how that plays a huge role. And we know in almost any area, relationships, faith, being vulnerable is very hard.
Mm-hmm.
How can we create a safe space for somebody to be vulnerable in a coaching session or in a spiritual conversation, that they can feel safe and vulnerable in it?
Well, one thing that I do is all of my coaching is on Zoom. I don't do anything in person. And right there, that is my creating a safe space that they are sitting in their place of choice. If they were to get scared, they could hang up. So that is one of the ways I create safety for them. Another is by having them get to know me, and I do a discovery call beforehand to see, how do we feel about each other on the front end? Are we going to work well together? Do you trust me enough to start? And I put them in charge of where we're going. I don't dictate what they're doing. It's all about what they want to do and what they want to accomplish. One of my recent clients, I loved how she put it, because she wrote me a beautiful review. She said, the thing I love about Danielle is my agenda is her agenda. And when a client feels that way, that I am here to help serve them, that makes them feel safer, and to pour on the grace, because they start opening up a little bit. They're watching how is this lady responding to me?
Right.
That's good. That's very good. Let's talk about love. Is this primarily about self-love, or does it extend to how we show up in relationships, or both?
Oh, it's way more than self-love.
Mm-hmm.
My book, Love's Manifesto, which I give away free at my website. I won't let anyone sell it. You want it, you get it free. It comes in PDF or in audio. And it is what is love, why we don't believe it, and what it takes to convince us. Because God is love. That's the source of love, is God. We love because he loved us first.
Right.
And when we love ourselves, we are honoring him. There are some Christians out there, or people preaching that you need to hate yourself because of all these stupid reasons. But we need to love ourselves. Jesus said, love one another as you love yourself, or as you love your neighbor. Well, who is your neighbor? You should be your own neighbor to yourself.
Right.
Because how I teach is you're like a beautiful garden. If you think of yourself as like a beautiful garden, if you have a garden and your neighbor wants some of your tomatoes, you don't pull out your whole tomato plant and give it to them.
Right.
You pick some tomatoes and give that to. So you give of what you have out of your abundance. So you need to take care of yourself so that you can give to others. And it's about knowing the love of God, believing it, because it took me a long time to believe it. I didn't, because of my trauma, I didn't believe it for a very long time. I wanted to, but if I was really being honest, it was like a really nice story.
Mhm.
That's like, yeah, I like that. And I would agree with it. I didn't disagree, but whenever anything went wrong, I always felt unloved because it went to the root of what
Hmm.
my trauma had been. So the
Mhm.
love is about everything. It's about how we love ourselves, how we love others, about receiving love, because love is our greatest need. We're created in the
Mhm.
image and likeness of God, who is love. It's the fabric of his being. He lives in a relationship, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. He created us for relationship with him. And love lives in a circle.
Mhm.
It's
Hmm.
given and received. It's like
Mhm.
breathing. We have to
Mhm.
breathe in, we have to breathe out. Love is about giving and receiving. It's the biggest part of everything I do.
Two brief points. One is there's a miracle here. I don't know how she has heard anything you say. Your microphone is totally away from you. It just dawned on me.
Mhm.
I'm going to keep that on the show.
Well, that's where it is.
I didn't even notice.
Well, you are usually allergic
I
to that
did
thing.
not.
All of a sudden, I look and I see the microphone almost on the other bedroom. Anyway,
This is great. I love things like this. When I had
yes.
a podcast, I didn't edit things like this out. This
Oh,
is us being humans, and people
right.
listening, people watching are going, "Oh yeah, I did something like that myself." Oh, and that
Yeah.
helps
Mhm.
create the trust and the safeness, because we're not here putting on a pretense. We're
Right.
not
Right. No,
show.
and what you see, like I told you when we met, what you see is what you get.
Every day, all
So,
day.
Me
This
too.
is,
right.
yes,
The,
this is us.
the second part,
Yeah.
going back to what you were saying about how it was hard for you to accept God's love. For me, it was the unconditional part
Hmm.
because I could not think that I could be forgiven. And it took a lot of study of grace and mercy
Hmm.
for me to understand that, yes, it doesn't matter what I do. The whole from the east to the west, you could say all that, those words, and it just didn't click with me.
Hmm.
Is, in church, oh, he loves you unconditional. Yeah, I had not experienced unconditional love in the human form. So that was a foreign language for me.
Exactly. That's what Love's Manifesto is all about.
Mhm.
Right, right. So once I started to actually study what grace and mercy was in the word and actually allowing myself to experience it, then I said, "Oh, okay, this is for real." But it is a hard thing to do, especially when we haven't experienced it in the flesh.
Right.
So I understand what
Don't
you
even
were saying.
believe it exists. I remember
Right.
I was on the phone with a friend many years ago, and she didn't believe unconditional love
Hmm.
existed at all. Anyway,
Hmm.
and I was on the phone with her, and she had just had a child and talked about her kid. I'm like, I asked her a question. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I mean, if your kid did blah 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 blah, would you stop loving them? Absolutely not. I said, well,
Hmm.
there you go.
Mhm.
And she went,
There's
oh.
unconditional love.
And when she saw that it could be a thing, then she was
Hmm.
able to start seeing it in other ways.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
once you've tasted it, it, it it still it still captivates me when I
Yes.
experience it in one of those moments where I'm like, wow, I did
Hmm.
nothing for that, man.
Hmm. Yes. Purely the grace of God.
Mhm.
The other part that I kept thinking about when we started the conversation, you talked about, I think it's in the C part, about acknowledging the issues, and you specifically mentioned childhood neglect. And the issues with childhood is sometimes as we grow up, we think this is normal because it is our normal.
Uh-huh.
So to acknowledge things like I was not abused because maybe I wasn't beaten
Hmm.
or I was in, I don't know, somebody was in a good financial position. I was in, I didn't lack anything. So
Hmm.
no, I wasn't abused. But then you start understanding things like neglect, like, lack of parenting, like, not teaching you values. They just gave you stuff. And is that when people start realizing, wait a minute, this is not normal. So it's hard sometimes, especially when somebody's trying to figure out there is something wrong here, but I don't know what it is.
Oh,
Mhm.
exactly. That's how my counselor pointed it out to me. I didn't learn the term childhood emotional neglect
Mhm.
until just a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
When I was writing my first book, Emerging with Wings, and was in counseling and just talking to my counselor, nonchalantly normalizing my life. And she stopped me and said, something went terribly wrong. That's how she
I
said
have
it.
that experience.
Something went terribly wrong. And then she unpacked what was supposed to take place, and
Yeah.
my mouth dropped open, and I'm like, that's like a thing? Because you
Yeah.
don't know what you don't know.
Right, exactly. And I had the same experience. I had joined a new church, and this female pastor, who actually was a counselor, took me out for ice cream. It was late at night. We went to IHOP because IHOP is 24 hours, and she just wanted to get to know me. I start telling my life. I'm laughing at it even,
Mhm.
and her jaw is dropping and dropping, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Do you realize what?" So yeah, and that's when I started picking up on, oh, I thought, yeah,
It was
Yeah.
well, not, I knew it was not perfectly normal, but I thought it was not that big of a deal.
Yeah. And see, that's where it can be difficult for someone
Hmm.
to get help because they don't see it.
Right.
That's where the mission of my company 4F Media is exposing the truth about emotional trauma and breaking the barriers to recovery, because so many people who suffer childhood emotional neglect
Hmm.
don't realize they have it.
Right.
Mhm.
That's why I have my assessment of 30 different questions of these are the side effects of
Hmm.
trauma or childhood emotional neglect. You got this going on? Do you have one of these, 12 of these, 15 of these, all 30 of these? One
Mhm.
time I had all 30 of them.
Okay. You probably have 30. She says she
I
probably.
say I probably had all 30.
Had all 30. I bring that out when I do my workshops and when I
Mhm.
speak, to tell
Mhm.
people to give them hope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
yeah,
have them anymore. I had
right,
all
Hmm.
30 of them.
right,
Hmm.
I don't
right.
have them anymore. There's hope.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Mhm. And I feel for the people who feel like there is no hope.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was listening to you. What about atheists? People who don't believe in God.
Hmm.
Got a
He
lot
believes in
going
them.
on, but they believe in themselves, right? Is
They're
that
all
what you
different.
said? They all different.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
They're all different. And why are they atheists? There's lots of different reasons for it.
Yeah.
I
definitely.
pray for them. When I come to know of one, I pray for
Mm-hmm.
them. There's one that does a
Mm-hmm.
podcast that interviews Christians on purpose just to tear them apart. And I pray
Oh
for
Mm,
wow.
I pray for that person from time to time,
definitely.
quite regularly at the
Definitely.
beginning when I discovered that. Because they invited me
Mm-hmm.
to be on their podcast. I'm like, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not unless God sent me there, which I have a colleague who was on there 3, 4 times. He felt like the
Mm-hmm.
Lord sent him there. I'm like, well,
Like,
God bless you.
yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed a young lady on my podcast when I had it, and she has a book called Atheism, from fundamentalism to
Hmm.
atheism to grace is the subtitle.
Mm,
And I
wow.
forgot the primary title, but I interviewed her of how she was raised in fundamentalist and how she was so traumatized by that she turned into an
Hmm.
atheist. And then
Mm-hmm.
by the grace of God, because he's freaking amazing, she ended
Hmm.
up
Mm-hmm.
marrying a Christian.
Wow.
And
Mm.
they were like, we won't talk about any of this. And
Hmm.
they understood between, and the man that God gave her was just amazing. I mean, when God
Hmm.
does it, it's just so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
My husband was a gift too, very specific like that.
Mm-hmm.
And how through something God's shared with him that he asked her, can I share this with you? I think God showed me something. May I share it with you? If you say no, I won't. I
Hmm.
mean, what grace is that? What
Hmm.
grace is that? And she said, no, I want to hear it. And she had
Mm-hmm.
been wrestling with some things because the Lord was, dealing with her.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And what he had to say spoke right into all the things she'd been dealing with. And,
Wow.
through the Spirit of God brought her back
Back home.
through the grace of God.
Mm-hmm.
There's hope. As
Oh,
long
There
as
yeah.
is hope.
there's hope.
I think that person that likes to interview people to tear them down is coming from a place of pain.
I don't know. Makes sense to me.
I can just imagine, because if you don't believe, why do you care? But when you care so much,
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them, yeah, I don't believe, you do you.
Mm-hmm.
But when you care so much, not only that you might tell them, oh, you're foolish, there's no big brother in the sky, or whatever they say, they go to the extra step of bringing people to tear it down. That person's coming from a place of pain.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to purposely reject it. I think that is from a
I
place of
pray
pain.
for them because
Yeah.
they ask the same question many times when they're talking to someone. So I'm like,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
so I pray for them.
Gotcha questions.
That's what I can do. I'm not the
Yeah.
savior. I'm a big prayer.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. No, I can't
Mm-hmm.
say, not even myself.
Mm-hmm. Miss Danielle, let's talk about freedom. I like that word, freedom.
Hmm.
Um, I remember when I started feeling freedom, and I was well into my adulthood
Hmm.
from childhood trauma.
Hmm.
And tell me, I know everyone's different, but what does it look like with your client when they get a taste of that freedom?
I think freedom means power.
Mm,
Hmm.
Freedom is power. It's when a person regains who they are. They
mm-hmm,
regain
Hmm.
their power of choice, of
mm-hmm,
knowing who they are, what they want to do, who they want to, live for, how, all their choices theirs again. They can
mm-hmm,
Hmm.
see who they are. They can feel that they feel like a person, and they
mm-hmm,
have the power to move forward. To me,
mm-hmm,
freedom it's all about power to love yourself, power to forgive yourself, power to love other people, power to forgive other people, power to make
mm-hmm,
your choices, to draw boundaries, to you know be who you are and embrace that. There's a song by Jordan Smith that I love, called Stand in the Light. And part of this, the lyrics are, the greatest risk by far is to stand in the light and be seen as we are. When you can
Mm.
stand in the light and be seen as you are powerful.
Yeah.
mm. I love that. I love that.
I remember, see, I went from my mom's house to marriage and to another marriage. That's a whole another mess. But it was a yeah, but it was a domestic violence situation in the last one. And there's two instances that I remember very vividly. The first one was the first time that he left the house, and I had a dog, and the dog and I went to eat ice cream. It was nothing big or one, it was just ice cream. And I remember telling the dog, nobody in this world knows where we are. And it's the best feeling in the world.
Mm-hmm,
Now, I was just down the street eating ice cream
mm-hmm,
with the dog,
mm-hmm,
but I didn't have to call anybody to tell them where we were. Nobody was waiting for me. I could have stayed there for an hour, 5 minutes, whatever I wanted. So that whole thing of choice,
Mhm.
yes. And then after that was when I had my first apartment, because again, since I never lived by myself, uh, I went from mom here to here, and it was my first apartment. And I remember I went to a store to buy pictures and decorations, and it took me all day. And it's like, why? Because it took me weeks, but that first day it took me hours in the store. I didn't know what I liked. I
That's a
had to
side effect
define and find out.
of neglect.
mm-hmm,
That
Right.
is one of the side effects of childhood emotional neglect.
mm-hmm,
Yes. I had no idea what I wanted to do exactly what I liked. But what was that?
mm-hmm,
I didn't know.
mm-hmm.
So I had to go and look and look. And do I really like this? Do I don't? Like I said, it took me days of going to
Yeah,
the
do I like this
store.
because they like this, or do I like
Mm-hmm.
this
Right.
because I
That was
Right,
the issue.
feel like
exactly.
this? Or
Right. Because I was a total people pleaser. growing up and in my relationships. And it was like, what do I really like? Do I, like you said, do I like it because they liked it? It was their favorite color. Is like, do I really like that? It was a total process. Yeah. Those first months, and the bad and the good thing is when I left my house to that apartment, I had nothing but my clothes. And I said, you think, oh, that was bad. No, that was wonderful. It was wonderful because I was able to get everything to my liking. I didn't bring anything with me but my clothes. Mm-hmm. So I got to go get a bed that I could afford that I liked. Mm-hmm. And I could get even the forks. If I wanted the plastic, it was plastic. If I wanted them white, yellow, whatever. Mm-hmm. So, somebody was like, oh, she had a whole house furnished. And now no, that was fantastic. It was the best thing that could have happened to me that I only had my clothes. Mm-hmm. Because I was able, my computer, because that was an opportunity for me to get to know me, to learn me. And it was just me and the dog. We were so happy. Because even the dog had been traumatized, bless her heart. And yeah, we were the happiest people. Me and the dog during that process, and it was so amazing. So I understand that taste of freedom, and it's like, oh yeah, we have to do this. Oh.
Definitely. Miss Danielle, values. Why is knowing your value so important to your healing process?
I think that when you are unhealed, you don't know what your values are.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
you don't.
Just like Natty was saying about, I don't know what I like. I don't know what I believe. I don't know what I think. I don't know what's important to me. And so it's through the healing process, I believe, that you develop your values. You discover what really matters to me.
Definitely.
What am I willing to fight for?
In the coaching process, how do you help people discover those things? How, because again, you come with the whole, is it me or is it all the baggage that I have? Redefine, how do you help them define those values?
They have to talk about it, and they talk through it. Just like when, if you do journaling at all, journaling is a great exercise because you discover things you didn't know you were thinking when you're writing. The same thing when you're having a conversation. We'll talk about things, and then they'll say something and say, well, tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. Oh, well, why that? Oh, that was really quick how you did that. Like maybe the barking, like you were talking about. A little bit. Talk about that.
Yeah. I remember when I really started feeling free from my childhood trauma. 9 years ago in Celebrate Recovery, when I had to do an inventory.
Yeah, that's a powerful one.
I took my inventory sheet and put it somewhere else because I didn't even want to think about it. But then once I started writing, I couldn't stop. I could not stop. I mean, I'm writing on the back. Remember, I came to class, we need more copies of the inventory sheet. And inventory was who hurt you, but then also who did you hurt? Okay? So it wasn't just about who hurt me. Another sheet, who have you hurt because of your pain? And that really, really helped me. All the counseling and therapy leading up to that was a big factor. But I think when it came to, when I went to Celebrate Recovery, I walked out saying, I'm free.
Awesome.
And I want to help other people to be free.
You excavated your soul.
Yeah, it's like when you first encounter Christ, you accept Christ, and you get baptized, and you're new.
You want to tell
and you want to tell. You know what I'm saying?
That's the way it
That's
happened.
how it was.
Mhm.
Was
It didn't
celebrate
go
because
right with me.
I wanted to tell everybody, and I wanted everybody to be free, like I was free. So that's why I say I like that freedom.
Mhm.
When you are free, you know it, you feel it. It's like the moment you know, because you have been bound for so long.
Yeah.
Remember
Like
when we
like
pulled
the
up in the
morning I
parking lot?
yeah, the
We pulled
morning
up in a parking. Oh, sorry, babe. I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. We both just happened to start at the same time. That's all. Finish what you're
Go
saying
ahead.
about a
Go
parking
on.
lot.
Go on.
I was remembering the moment when the moment I wrote it down when I had my revelation of believing the love of God. I remember where I was. I remember where I was sitting. It was a moment that
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden I suddenly believed, and it
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
was it was a like you said, it was just so wonderful.
Yes.
And another time of believing the grace of God in one of those times when it's like you really you get it and no one can take it away.
Yeah.
That's when you get that power.
Mm-hmm.
Is like Maddie, what you were talking about the unconditional love and
Mhm.
studying it and all that, but with me it was about I had to experience it. So
Mhm.
it was the night after I was not a good person. I won't go into detail.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Unnecessary. But the
We
next
all have
morning,
fallen off the grace.
Been there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but the next morning when, the self-condemnation and beating
Mhm.
yourself up, all wanted to, everyone pick up a baseball bat and beat me up. And the spirit of grace was just there in the room. I wrote about it in my book, Because You Matter, actually. I call it because I had a meltdown the night before, an awful meltdown. I got blackout drunk, meltdown. It was awful. And the next day I didn't even remember anything except for that I had melted down and talked to two people, didn't remember a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I talk about this in my book, Because You Matter, because it was a pivot point in my life, because the condemnation that would come from myself was so ginormous. I'm a believer, and I'm behaving like
Mm-hmm.
this. It's like, what
Mm-hmm.
is wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But God was there. The Spirit
Yeah.
of grace was there. And He ushered me through that morning and brought about change in my life. And it was just so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to tell that story and share that, even as embarrassing as it is,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
because it can help somebody.
Yes,
So if
Mhm.
it
you
can.
are listening or watching, you just have gone through something that you're ashamed of yourself. You're feeling that shame. Invite the Spirit of grace into that.
Mhm.
Let Him
Mm-hmm.
take the shame away, because Jesus bore our shame,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and let Him give you the forgiveness and the fresh start that you are craving.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Amen.
Definitely.
Let's talk about your book, Emerging with Wings. That was your first book, right?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
I have it here in case you wanted to see it.
Yes. Tell us
Yes.
about the book.
Um, well, it's my story of getting free from childhood trauma and finding my value, but I wrote it like a love story. So it has a hero, it has a villain, and it has a person overcoming.
Oh,
And
so it's fictionalized?
no, no, it's just
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's just written like a story. No,
oh, gotcha, gotcha.
there's no
Mm-hmm.
fiction in it.
No, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
By fictionalized, I meant like you tell the story, but from the point of characters and not
No,
say this was me
Mm-hmm.
and
no,
stuff like.
there's
No,
no
okay,
fear. Well, the hero is I call him the pursuer.
gotcha,
I call him the pursuer, and it's talking about the spirit of grace and how he
gotcha.
pursued me through my life. And, where I was at when I was writing the book, I was looking back and seeing him, because when he was there, when I was going through it, I didn't see him.
Gotcha. No, that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
But then the villain is called the jab, which stands for
Mm.
jealous, angry, bully. And there's
Oh.
three ways that the jab shows up. The jab shows up as the enemy of our soul.
Hmm.
The jab shows up as, I believe there's other evil spirits out there. And then the jab also shows up by my own unregenerative, self-attacking person attacking myself and The enemy doesn't have to give me any.
Mm-hmm.
I can do it all by myself.
Right.
So those parts are inserted in the story over and over again for where they show up as, I go through my story and as the person who is going on the adventure to get free, and I emerge free at the end.
Well, that's beautiful. How many books you have?
I have 5 that I have published. 2 are digital only. The one, Love's Manifesto, available at my website for free. The
Mm-hmm.
other digital is called A Bird Named Pain,
Mm-hmm.
Payn. It's a short story, an allegory of dealing with the complex emotions when you have a loved one with Alzheimer's.
Oh, okay.
But then Because You Matter is self-help of how to take ownership of your life when you've been through something hard. Take ownership of your emotions, your mind, your sense of purpose, your value, your courage, all the different things. But I interviewed 10 different people. So there's a story in between every one of the chapters with someone else's story of how they took ownership of their life. And I interviewed a number of them. Their story is on my YouTube channel, so you could watch them. We read through their story on that video on my YouTube channel. And then the most recent one is Talk About Your Value, which is
I
a
know. I wanted to
activity.
talk about that one.
Yeah, that's an activity that my grandson and I created together after his artwork because he loves to draw. He was 12 at the time, now he's 14. And he drew pages and pages of tacos. They were singing and dancing and being a mechanic and from this country and that country and doing all kinds of different things. Pages of tacos. But on one page, there was one picture of a burrito. And the burrito was upset. And I'm like, Gideon, what is wrong with the burrito? And he said he's upset because he's not a taco. And I had recently come to be aware of a statistic and that had just cut me to the heart, which was compelling me to do my workshops about trauma-informed things, because the second leading cause of death in ages 10 to 14 is suicide. And many times it's because they're not the taco for whatever reason. They're not the taco. They feel like they're the burrito. They don't have any value. And so I said, Gideon, we have to do something with this. We have to create a book, and couldn't figure out how to do a storybook. And I wanted to get it out quicker than that too. I didn't want to delay it. So we turned it into an activity book. It has some stories in it. It has word searches and mazes and Mad Libs and matching things and fill in the blanks. I mean, all coloring pages. My grandson Gideon, he created all the characters that are in it. And there's a special font in there that he created for coloring as well. And I did the puzzles that are in there. And the subtitle is Fun to Feed Your Self-Esteem. And the main character is Gary. I have a little felt Gary here.
Oh, he has braces.
Yes.
So cute.
Gary is the taco. He's the main character, and he's just a fun-loving guy who makes friends everywhere he goes, an extrovert, loves everybody. He's wonderful. But then he met Mr. Squibbles, and Mr. Squibbles is a cat burrito. And Mr. Squibbles thought he did not have any value because he's not a taco. Because Gary's like, are you crazy? No, you have value. And so he put value into Mr. Squibbles. They're best friends. And now they travel around the galaxy making friends and putting value into people.
That is absolutely awesome.
It is. It is.
It is. How was that experience of working with him to create this book? That had to be a lot of fun.
It was wonderful. It was really great, the process that we went through to do that, too, because I talked with him, but I talked with his mom. I mean, because, he was 12. I need to talk with the mom.
Right.
Talked with her about it. She talked with him to make sure he wanted to do it and wasn't doing it because Mima wanted to do it. That's what they call it, it's Mima. And I wanted him to be all in as well. Is he going to do the work? And so she talked about, doing the work, and we were going to be getting together, to do the work. But then it was through the summer, and that was going to be a difficult thing. And, he's 12. He wants to be outside playing with his friends. He doesn't want to be doing this thing, but he does want to be doing this thing. So how do we do this? So I was able to come up with certain jobs for him to do. I wrote down all the different jobs that were going to need to be done. We had a meeting and asked him, which one of these do you want to do? And so he got to choose what parts of the book he wanted to participate in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I gave him those jobs. I would give him a deadline, and we met on Zoom once a week instead of having the pressure of having to meet up in person. We don't live far from each other, but still,
Mm-hmm.
you're 12, want to play outside with your friends.
Mhm. Yeah.
We'd
Mm-hmm.
meet on Zoom, and it would be 1 hour. It was just 1 hour long, and we would work together, and he would do the work while we were doing it. We did that until we had all the work done. And then I took all of his drawings and everything, and I had them turned into cartoons
Mhm.
through a graphic artist to create it for the book, and then had the book put into that. And he's done author events with me, which
Oh,
is really cool.
sweet.
That is so
When I was
wonderful.
doing the vendor program in grocery stores, in a Kroger, he did one of those with me as well. That was a lot of fun.
I'm sure he was. He's a very young author.
And definitely teenagers, they need this
Oh
Hmm.
yeah.
because they are under tremendous pressure.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
See, when I grew up, there was no internet, there was no social media.
Hmm.
And when you talk to someone, you talk face to face, or
Hmm.
you talk on the phone and you could not see them.
Hmm.
Okay? Um, but the pressures that my grandchildren
Mhm.
Hmm.
have 5 grandsons. And
He's
the
a Mima.
I'm a Mima too. Yes. Yes. Yes, I am.
Like Matt.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. My youngest grandson is 4, and he started calling me Mima.
The other was wearing grandma, but the little baby started with Mima. Now everybody's Mima.
That's awesome. I
Mm-hmm.
She
love him.
switched.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Miss Danielle, I want to ask you one last question. When you work with so many people, coaching through media, can you share an example of a breakthrough that's you've experienced? That's anonymous, of course,
Yeah.
but can you share a
Well, I'll
little?
start with one of the breakthroughs that happens repeatedly. Then I have a specific example of it. It's my favorite one to share because I got to watch it with my eyeballs. And that's the epiphany of what is called the perception gap. I didn't
Mm.
realize there was a name for it till after I had gone through it myself. And I love to say this with people when they're listening is you don't have to know what something's called to heal from it, to use it or work with it. I'm a
Right.
simplifier. So,
Mhm.
a perception gap is when two people don't perceive things the same way, which nobody does, but
Mhm.
when it creates a gap that separates you. Like
Mm.
if you have two people are looking at the same mountain, one's on the east side, one's on the west side. It's the same mountain. You're seeing the
Mhm,
same thing per se,
Mhm.
but you're seeing something different. Neither one of you are wrong.
mhm,
Right.
And see, that's where it becomes difficult because, oh, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, no. Two people can both be right and have a completely different view of something.
mhm,
And so to expose that perception gap, to see that and to bring closure where they couldn't see the other side and they enlarge their view, they can see from the other person's point of view. Oh wow, I didn't see it that way. My mother and I did that when we were rebuilding our relationship. We had a very um, strained relationship due to
Mhm.
all the trauma. But she came to me and asked me if I wanted to be friends, and we repaired our relationship. That was the first relationship repair that I was a part of, was doing that with my mother, and she's the one who started it. But we went through, well, when you did this, I felt like this. Well, when you did this, I felt like that. And it's like, well, you were doing this. No, that's not what I was doing. You
mhm,
talk it through. That's a perception gap. I've written about it a couple times on my website. So if anyone wants more information about that specifically, go to my website and put that in their perception gap. There's a article on that.
mhm,
But in one of my coaching sessions, I was coaching a mother and a daughter. I coach one-on-one, but I also do coach one-on-two.
Mhm.
I was coaching a mother and a daughter, and I'd started with the mother, and then she ended up bringing in her daughter. And she was wrestling with her relationship with her daughter. She was the one having not a bigger problem. They had different problems. There's a perception gap of that. But when she was going through one of her conversations with her daughter in our coaching session, I saw the perception gap going on. I saw her viewing her daughter as someone else.
Mm.
She didn't see her daughter as her daughter. And so as I showed her that, what she was doing, then it was like, wow, yeah. So she could change how she was viewing her daughter. She had been traumatized by someone, and she was filtering her daughter through that lens instead of letting her daughter be her daughter. So being able to see and remove the lens of the perception gap, and then that completely changed how they could relate to one another.
And that is a great principle. I'm thinking back, you and I had those conversations. Because there's an age gap, there is a cultural gap, and so that means we grew in total different places with total different backgrounds, and sometimes we see some things totally different.
Of course. Dr. Gabor Mate, who is a real famous psychologist, professor person, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was just saying on a TikTok or something the other day that siblings are not raised by the same parents. And I
I can
showed that
attest
to
to
my
that.
husband, and at first he was like, "What do you mean? Of course they're the same parents." I'm like, "No, you're not
No.
getting what he's saying." Because
Mm-mm.
they do the whole thing of firstborn, middleborn, baby, and all that, and there is some truth in that. Sometimes it's real truth, sometimes it's not true at all. But the point is when a child is born, their birth order and the
Mm-hmm.
maturity of their parents is different every time. So they are experiencing a different version of their parent. And see,
Oh, I can attest to that.
when I was working things out with my mother, I discovered that what I know to be the perception gap now, which was huge because I went through multiple deaths growing up. And my mother lost her mother. I lost my grandmother. 2 months later, she lost her husband. I lost my dad.
Yes.
4 years later, she lost her eldest son. I lost my brother. When I realized those were the same people who died, but they were completely different relationships.
My brother and I have conversations where he can't understand certain things about my relationship with my mom, and he thinks it's because it's a mother-daughter issue. No, it was a total different person. See, my brother is 20 years older than me. So he got the fresh 19-year-old young peppy woman. He had the normal within a marriage. He had his mom and dad in the house until he went off to college. I'm the child of a second marriage. My dad left when and my mom was 40. That's a whole different woman. That's a whole different woman.
Yeah.
And I'm the marriage of second. My dad died. My grandma died.
I'm sorry.
And my sister, who's between my brother and I, that he grew with, died. So it was just my mom and I. And she had all that loss. But now she was not only a single woman with all that loss, but 40 years older. So yeah, I said, no, mommy did that. He was like, no, you didn't have the mom I had, and I didn't have the mom you had. So I can attest to you. No, not two siblings are raised by the same parent,
Yeah.
in different situations. Mine is probably a bigger, dramatic thing, but yeah, and even twins are not sometimes raised by the same parent because the kids' personalities are different, so the parents react to them in a different way. There's so many factors.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Definitely.
Well, last but not least, we have different platforms. Some are visual, but some are audio. So I want to make sure that if anybody wants to get a hold of you, they can. Can you tell us your website?
It's DanielleBernock.com. It's DanielleBernock.com.
Okay, because I want to make sure that those who are in audio can actually get a hold of you too. And if somebody's on the fence of starting coaching, what would you tell them if they're undecided?
They're undecided. Well, Why are you undecided?
Ah.
That's one
Good
thing. Why are you
question.
undecided? And
Mm-hmm.
if you're afraid,
Mm-hmm.
then question the fear.
Mm.
Question the fear. When you have fear going on, question the fear. And one of the best questions you can ask fear, ask yourself, and that is, what's the worst that could happen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What is the
Mm-hmm.
worst that could happen? Because when the fear is swimming around there, unchallenged, it's like, what if, and you're just spinning.
Mm-hmm.
But if you
Mm-hmm.
stop it and you go, what's the worst that could happen? You can identify, is this really a risk or is it really not a risk? And
Mm-hmm.
how big is the risk? And am I willing to take this risk? I have an article on my website about that also. 2 powerful questions to fight fear. So
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
Danielle.
sharing all this wisdom and this
Mm-hmm.
time with us. We appreciate you being in our show.
Yes.
And now, welcome to the family of Thrive by the Rising Muse. You're
Yes.
welcome here anytime.
Anytime.
And any upcoming projects?
this, I'm working on my trilogy of workshops. I
Oh,
just updated
nice.
my website with them, updated my speaker page, and added my trilogy of workshops that I'm taking into small businesses to serve the staff for
Okay.
emotional wellness and relationship repair. I have 3 of them. The trilogy, one is mental health as a result of trauma. The other one is emotional skills for turbulent times. The other one is repairing relationships starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 3
Great.
different ways of using the SELF process to effectively deal with those things.
Thank you so much, Danielle. We have learned so much, and this conversation is not only grounding,
Mm-hmm.
but inspiring.
Oh, thank you. It was a
And
delight. I enjoyed
much
speaking
hope.
with you so much.
Much hope. Thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome.
we hope to see you soon.
Okay. Like that.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Thrive by the Rising Muse. If this resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember to follow us on social media. We are at The Rising Muse on most platforms. We are on IG, TikTok, Fanbase, Blue Sky, and Skylight, and Facebook. We're everywhere, and we are at The Rising Muse. Help us get our YouTube subscribers to 1,000. It will help us share these important conversations with everybody who needs it.
And before we go, we want to remind you of this. If you're experiencing a mental health crisis, please dial 988. If there's someone that you know and love experiencing a mental health crisis, please dial 911 or take them to the nearest emergency room.
But if you think that you are in a domestic violence relationship, need to talk, or need assistance, please call 800-799, or, let me start over, 800-799-7233, or text 887-888. Make sure you're in a safe place when you're making this outreach.
We love you, we see you, and we believe healing is possible.
And as always,
Don't forget to thrive.
Have a blessed day.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.